So my name is Erin Snow. I am the program assistant for the MS Ed program here at Northwestern. And thank you for the final event. Thank you for joining us for the final event of Preview Days this week. Today, we are going to be talking about a day in the life of current students. We have 4 student panelists who are with us, current students here, representing different aspects of our program. We have an educational studies student, James. We have a learning sciences student, Sierra. We have Allie, an elementary ed student, and Marissa, a secondary ed student. And at the end, we're going to start with introductions, and then we'll move through the opportunity for folks who are joining us to ask questions. And at the end, we'll have closing remarks, since this is our final event of Preview Days, from Kavitha Matsko, our director. All right, so if the participants who are joining us could use the chat function, if you have access to it, to enter your name, your pronoun, and where you are from. And I'll give you just a minute to do that. And then I'm going to review over how we'll conduct this session. And then I'm going to stop screen sharing so that we can see the students who are participating in the panel. But give the chat a moment. Thanks so much to those of you who participated in the chat. So today we have 4 students, as I said. I'm going to give them each a moment to introduce themselves, explain why they are here with us at Northwestern, what drew them to MS Ed, whether they're studying, and then we're going to, so we'll go through that one by one, and then we'll give the opportunity for those who have joined us to ask any questions that you might have. They could be general questions about being a student. They could be specific questions for the program that you're interested in, directed at a particular student. If it's something that is really personal or that you would prefer to have the opportunity to discuss outside of the context of today's panel, we can certainly support that too. And you could just put that in the chat, and we can follow up with you after the fact. But, you know, and if you think of something later and you'd really like to have that answered, you can follow up with us as well. So I am, so you could either ask a question in the chat if you would like to raise a question, or you could use the raise your hand function, and I can help moderate to make sure that nobody gets overlooked, but the chat would probably be easiest. And you're certainly welcome to unmute and speak as well. Since there's not a ton of people on today, hopefully there wouldn't be problems with people speaking over each other. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. And then if we could go in this order, just so that you guys know who to talk first, we'll go James, Sierra, then Allie, and then Marissa. And if you don't mind introducing yourself, here we go.
Yeah, thank you so much for introducing us, Erin. And hi, everyone. My name is James, or Jiaming Zhou. I'm an international student from the Northeast of China, and I started in the MS Ed program in summer 2022. So my concentration is in educational studies, and I'm also about to graduate this spring. So I'm really excited to be here. I also work as a graduate assistant in the MS Ed office, and it's a pleasure for me to also work in office as well with so many amazing people. For me, one reason I decided to join the MS Ed program and to become a J was definitely because of the community. I really appreciate the close and compact community that we have here on campus, and also the expanding community that we have in Northwestern, Evanston, Chicago, and beyond. So once again, thank you all for having me, and I'm hopefully excited to perhaps help you to make a decision to join us in the MS Ed program at Northwestern. That's all.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Good evening and good morning or good afternoon. I'm Sierra. I'm currently in Evanston, and I'm current student of MSED with a concentration in learning sciences. I'm from Southeast China. And the reason why I choose the programs at Northwestern is that after exploring the website of different programs, I found that Northwestern could give me the most support in both research and coursework. And we get a lot of chances to communicate with professors from learning sciences. And we are also encouraged to dive deeper in our own research interests. So that's why I made that choice, and I never regretted that. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Allie Jones. I am from Kansas City. I'm in the elementary education program, and I was choosing between a couple different master's program, but it was an easy choice for me in the end to go to Northwestern because after looking into the programs, I appreciated how Northwestern not only focused on theory and other applications, but you can study practice in your classes and you don't have to wait until you get into an actual classroom to test your knowledge and start creating lesson plans and practicing. So I loved that. And also location was a big thing for me. I love Evanston. It's amazing. And I love being so close to Chicago.
Hello, everyone. My name is Marissa Moss. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm from Vernon Hills, Illinois, so not too far from Evanston. And I'm in the secondary education program in the MS Ed group, and I am concentrating in social sciences. So I'd like to be either like a middle school or high school history teacher. And I chose MS Ed because of the guiding commitments. And I think that like the program values really spoke to me when I was applying and looking at other programs, especially because I think like the values of a program can speak to the kind of like learning experiences you'll have and the types of people that will be teaching you how to teach. And so that was really important to me. And another thing was just like the classroom experiences that we were going to have, which Allie also talked about, because I think like, to me, it was really important, like who would be training me as a teacher and what that experience would look like. And so I really liked the application questions that the MS Ed program was asking. And so something that was helpful for me was to see like, you know, who is the MS Ed program and how does that align with who I am as a learner and as a student. And so I've loved my experience so far in the classroom here, and I really like to speak about MS Ed. So looking forward to working with you all today.
Thank you very much for the introductions. So for those of you who are potential students or potential candidates to our program, do you have any questions for any of these folks? If you're not sure, if you're kind of here just to listen, I can certainly give them some prompts of things to talk about. But if you have any specific questions, by all means, raise your hand or put it in the chat. While we're waiting to see if anyone comes up with questions or they're thinking about what they're going to ask about, could I have each of you say one of the things that you've enjoyed the most? Maybe something you expected to enjoy, or maybe something that was an unexpected joy since you've been in your studies here at Northwestern. And maybe we could go in the same order, unless someone just wants to kind of raise their hand to, if you've really got something top of mind.
Yeah, for me, something that I really enjoyed was the on-hands practice we have. So apart from learning all of the knowledge that we had in our classrooms from our discussions, really implementing it into like an actual setting was really great for me. One class I really liked was our 406 research and analysis class, where we were put into these placement sites. For me, I was put into the Center for Talent Development. Other students have been put into the Evanston Township High School. So being able to implement our learning in an actual classroom and seeing how students and educators interact with each other, how these theories actually work in practice was really important for me. It's something that I knew about when I was applying for the program, but actually seeing it in practice still amazed me. So it was great.
So I agree with James, because I also really enjoy my experience of working and talking to students at ETHS. I think it's a very new thing for our program because we didn't have placements before, and last year was the first year that even the students of learning sciences also got their own placements. And I think it's very, very helpful for my own research and study. So I gotta go out of the coursework, go out of the bubble and get in touch with the real world and the real students. I think the experience gave me a lot of inspirations that where my research should focus. So yeah, I really appreciate that we have placement and we got chance to talk to the on-site teachers and students.
Something for me is I came directly into this program from undergrad, and I was very appreciative of like the change from being in my undergrad classes where I was maybe one of a couple who wanted to be a teacher, and then you come into this program and you're surrounded by everyone who has the same goals, the same passions, and you really get to share experiences and share ideas in a way that is just so much more helpful for you than when you're an undergrad surrounded by everyone else. Also, again, getting to practice with students before you are put in as a student teacher is so amazing, and I've loved that experience.
For me, one thing that I've really enjoyed is like being able to see how much I've grown and learned since I started in the program. And a lot of that is built into like the final projects that you might have in your classes. And I started in summer 22. So, and I'm doing the program part-time. And in this time, I've like seen how much like my ideas about learning and teaching have just changed, and how like I was so intimidated about learning about standards and like all of the things that you need to know, and like EdTPA things, all of that. And I think slowly over time, I've had like more confidence in myself as a teacher, but also like I've gotten like the tactile knowledge of what I came in here to do. And I think that's really cool to see in myself over time. Like we just had to create like our clinical experiences portfolios for those of us who are student teaching in the fall. And putting that together was this really cool culmination of like, I've been in this program for 6 months and now I'm assessing like my own values and my teaching philosophy, and thinking about like what that will look like when I'm partnering with a school as a student teacher. So I think the structure of the program really lends itself to like evaluate your own growth and development, which I really appreciate. And that's something that I didn't see or didn't know about until I got to this point.
Those are all really great answers, guys. Thank you. Sierra, I think that you answered the question. There was a question in the chat if there was an interview process for any of these programs. And Sierra answered that she did not have one. But did any of you have any experiences? Some of the people who are on today might be accepted students, and some might still be considering the application process. So if any of you have anything you want to speak to in terms of what sort of contacts you had with the staff or other students throughout your application process, feel free. Go ahead.
So for the elementary education program, and I think same for Marissa, there was no interview. However, I requested one because I had a program that I already got into and they needed my decision within a month. And I was like, oh no, that's not good. So I requested one to get like my, to get a firmer understanding of Northwestern was a place I wanted to go. And it was super helpful. I highly recommend it. It was a great experience to hear what it also grounded me in what I wanted to do when I got into the program. The questions were helpful for me, and I also think it helped with my application in general.
And to add on to that too, I met with advisors a lot before making a decision about coming to Northwestern. I met with Dana Dotson, who's our clinical experiences coordinator, and I met with Rebecca Stefakis. And like in my meetings with both of them, I wanted to see like syllabi, like I wanted to see what are the required readings and like what is the time commitment, what are the sort of asks of like the assignments that we were going to have. And I think that really helped me get a vision for what my life would be like as a grad student in the program too. And I think like I can't encourage enough to like connect with the advisors and like ask all the questions you have, because they're like wonderful, amazing resources. And I felt like way more sure of like my decision to go into MSed because I had, meetings and had asked all the questions that I had. So I just encourage that a lot.
Yeah, I also want to share a bit about my conversations with the advisor, Christine, before I got, I think before I got admission and after I got admission. So Christine was very helpful. She answered almost every question I had, and she walked me through the course selection before I got here. So although I didn't have any interviews, I really appreciate that online conversations with Christine to help me better understand what I'm going to have after I arrive here. So yeah, that's my perspective.
Yeah, and I also agree. When I was applying for a program, I wasn't required to have an interview, but I also did reach out to my academic advisor, also Christian Glodek, to talk to her about what the classes were like here, what the workload might be, because I was still kind of concerned because I was moving from, like college level standards over to more professional standards here in the MS Ed program. So I wanted to know, what might be expected of me as a student making this transition. And Kristen definitely did answer all those questions I had. And apart from that, she also answered, for me at least, a lot of the concerns I had about what to do after the program. Because for the educational studies and learning sciences programs, I believe like these are relatively small. So after 1 year, 1 year is going to pass by pretty fast. What are we going to be doing after that? So Kristen really did help us to consider a lot of the different pathways that we have. And I think that really made me feel like the people in MSed really do care for us in our futures. So that's another reason why I decided to apply for a program as well.
Those are all really great and helpful answers, guys. Thank you so much. So I think James just made a nice segue to another prompt. No pressure, because I didn't ask you guys these questions in advance, but if you have an idea of what you plan to do with your degree, generally or specifically, it might be helpful for prospective students to hear how people hope to use their degrees and what sort of supports have you been receiving from MSed, or do you expect to receive from MSed as you consider your career paths?
Yeah, so if I could start first. Well, for me at least, I hope to potentially apply for OPT and working for the Center of Talent Development for some time before deciding whether or not if I want to pursue a PhD or return back to my hometown in China, or maybe even find another job position here in the United States. It's still still thinking about that process, but right now I definitely think I want to focus more on having at least some experience in teaching. And I think that being in a program introduced me to the talent for center development. I think that these talent development programs that we've been having here at the MSed program are really great. It's been really great to see how the theories that we've been learning are actually implemented in these classrooms. And I think that as an educator, I want to try to experience this a little bit more to see how these methods are actually utilized in these classrooms. So that's why I'm hopefully to thinking about applying for OPT. OPT is this thing for international students, but it's kind of like the same as like finding like a job position kind of. So right, just more training in general.
Yeah, because LS program also has just 1 year, so I went through very similar anxiety as James mentioned about, and I was also feeling at loss when I just started my program. We all had many choices, like finding a job or continue a study as a PhD candidate. And I appreciate that we had a lot of chance to explore the Northwestern resources for us to hunt for jobs. And we also introduced to participate in the career fairs. I think they will have career fairs every spring and every fall. So there are a bunch of career resources that we are introduced to during our study, especially in the fall quarter. And so another thing I really appreciate that is we all have a lot of personal conversations with our advisor and our peers about our future planning. So I can't get chance to clarify what I'm going to do by connecting to them and see different possibilities that different pathway may lead to.
I am, well, this program will lead me eventually to be an elementary education teacher. I plan to stay in Chicago for a while. I'm also doing this program part-time, so I'm not in the process of like applying for jobs yet. I, like Marissa, just submitted my materials for student teaching. So that's like the first step, I guess, towards being a full-time teacher, which is exciting.
Same for me, pretty much. And so when you're doing the part-time track, typically like you graduate within 2 years. So Allie and I will both be graduating the following year in 2024. And some of the other job opportunities that our advisors connect us with are like, I know that Rebecca puts together like a resume book when we're student teaching to share with different job fairs and other school networks that we are closely partnered with. And then another thing that we have going is an ongoing job spreadsheet that she sends out every week. So when you're in your student teaching site during that winter quarter, like every week you're getting several job listings that are coming open. And these obviously become like a much longer list as like the year goes on, because schools tend to post their job postings closer to like spring, summer, and in CPS sometimes like very late in the summer. And I also want to stay in Chicago after graduating. So I'm really hoping to become, like I said, a middle school or high school social studies teacher. And yeah, the clinical experiences stuff is like, it already is putting together a job portfolio for you, which I think is really great to have early on in your career. And then by the time you are done with student teaching and applying for jobs, you have like a whole set of materials to go from, which I think is like, that's something unique that's not offered at every program that does like pre-service teacher education. So just want to throw that out there.
Thank you, Marissa. I was hoping you would, you were going to add some of that information that since she's also a graduate assistant for our program, she's working on supporting some of the job placement efforts that we have in our office. So she is well aware of the many job resources that we have. And we also have resume workshops and mock interviews at the beginning of the student teaching experience as well, to, like she said, really make sure that people have all of their clinical materials ready, but also their skills for job searching as well. There was a question asked. Oh, let me just see here. I just answered it. Thank you. What was one, just so it's recorded in the video as well, what is one thing you wish you knew before you applied to your program or before you started it? Sierra, do you want to read your answer out loud? It's fine if you don't have anything else to expand on it, but I feel a little bit odd reading your words for you. So.
Yes. So what I said in the chat is just I would recommend the potential students to do research on the course they're gonna enroll in, because I think every course has different focus. And although they may look very similar just by names. So, and another factor, I think it will be the instructors, because every instructor has their own expertise in a very specific discipline. So I think doing research in advance will be very helpful to help us take the most advantage of this coursework.
I can add on to that a bit.
Yeah, sure. If anyone else has anything they want to add, go ahead.
I think like James mentioned this before, we both came directly into the program from undergrad. So the worry about how you're going to transfer like your undergrad work into more of a graduate school perspective was scary at first. But once you get into the classes, you realize that all the professors, when they assign assignments and everything that they assign for reading, it's so intentional and it is really guided towards what is going to help you the best in your future. So it doesn't even feel like homework. They also don't like really phrase it like homework anyways. It feels like you're preparing for your future and it's all important things that are necessary to do. So I wouldn't say there's like, if any of you guys are coming in from undergrad, it is not as scary of a transition as you may think. It feels very intentional, and it feels like you're preparing for your future rather than you're cramming for tests, which I haven't had a single test because we are learning how to be teachers. You don't really need to take multiple choice tests for that.
I think along with that too, I think I was worried when I started the program, like, is it going to be a lot of like busy work that wouldn't be directly, I worried about that essentially. Like, will I be getting, the thoughtful, deep experience that I was like looking for? And I've realized like now, 2-3 quarters in, that like the professors are so intentional with their work, and they also like want you to make the assignments as relevant to yourself and like your needs and your practice as possible, which is very different from undergrad as well. Like, I feel like in undergrad, you're doing a lot of things because you're meeting requirements, or that's just like the task of the class. But in our program, there is this really like reflective practice of like, you have to get what you need. And I think our instructors are really supportive of that. And one thing, I just didn't know that before coming in. And like one thing that was really helpful is in one of my classes last fall, we had like a final assessment or like something that we put together that was like a massive reflection of everything we learned. And at the same time, this clinical experiences portfolio due date was coming up. And so I just brought to my professor, like, here are the questions that I'm being asked for this portfolio. Here are the questions for our final project. Could I possibly do both in this one project? And he was so supportive of that. And like, all I had to do was ask. And I think that's like another powerful thing that like exists in our program. Like, it's very student-centered. And so like your professors want you to ask questions, and they want you to like get what you need from the program, which I think is really great. And something that I just wasn't sure about when I first began.
Yeah, and also definitely agree with Marisa about the flexibility when it comes to being in the program as a student. I also agree that it's very student-centered, and our professors really do know that for a lot of us, a lot of different things might be coming up, in our individual lives, especially with the pandemic, which we're sort of like over kind of. But then again, like during that time, people needed flexibility, and I really do appreciate how our professors were willing to reach out to us to make individual plans with us as well. I think that was really helpful for me. Something else apart from academics, I think that my academic advisor helped me with all my questions related to the program. But for me, something that I knew before I applied for a program, or actually before I started, was I sort of had some problems finding housing. Like, I didn't really know where to live. There were a lot of off-campus housing options like the Reserve, Link, and on-campus housing like Engelhart Hall, which I'm currently living in right now in this background. So I wish I could have connected with other students when making a decision on where to live or how to find a roommate. And I think that after making my decision to join the MS Ed program, I was able to connect with a lot more students. Back then, I think that we were just starting to utilize Slack, this chatting platform for students to connect with each other. So I think that was really helpful. But I do wish that we had something similar to Slack, like earlier on in the program.
James, you're so good at reading my mind. I was going to ask if any of the attendees had any practical concerns or questions about life, maybe outside of the academics, that you would want to ask. If you're from the Chicago area or not, you might not be familiar with Evanston or what it's like around the Northwestern campus. So if you have any questions, I can let the other three speak to their experiences with making some of those connections and figuring out your resources like James just mentioned. But if anyone has questions relating to those things, then by all means, now would be a great time to ask them. Marisa, Ali, or Sierra, do any of you want to talk about how you figured out housing or roommates or any of those practical sort of things?
I can start. I also live in the graduate hall as James, and I really recommend this option because it's hard for you to fail to apply for a graduate housing as you are a first year student, and there are several advantages of graduate house on campus. One, the rate includes everything. Include let me see, the utilities, the electricity, and free laundry. So you don't need to bother anything else after paying the rent. And another thing is it's very close to Evanston campus, especially in this very snowy weather. you don't want to walk for a very long distance or waiting for the bus outside the building. So it's another advantage. Another one, I think it's we have collective activities at Graduate House very often. I think every 2 weeks we'll have some activities like movie night and party, so you can really connect to your peers and people from other disciplines. I think it's also an advantage. So overall, I really recommend Graduate House, although it's not very cheap, but it's very convenient.
Like James and Sierra, I also live in Evanston, although I am moving into Chicago in the summer, so I'll kind of be experiencing both. But I chose Evanston in the beginning because of, since I'm doing the 2-year program, I don't have to go into a school every day, and I wanted an easier transition from the small little college I went to into moving in the city, which if you're doing that, I highly recommend living in Evanston. It's incredible, and I'm very happy with my decision here. But I live in an apartment, and I'd agree with James. It was hard to like connect and try to find a place, but I did get connected through the MSCD office with a current student when I was trying to find housing, and they gave me suggestions for apartment buildings to look at. And yeah, I chose an apartment there.
So I live in Chicago, and I had lived here. I think this is my 4th year living in the city. And so differently from the others, something that was important to me was the commute to Evanston. That's something that I really think you should consider if you like. I am fortunate to have a car, but there are days where it takes me like 45 minutes to get to Evanston. So really thinking about like where you want to live in proximity to where your classes are. That's important. And I think that like my commute isn't bad or anything, but I know that there are other students who do rely on CTA to get to and from Chicago to Evanston. And from my place, it would take me like an hour plus to get to Evanston on CTA. So that's why I choose to drive. But yeah, I think like thinking about your commute is important. And I think that like once you get your class schedule, or if you're thinking about when to take your classes, like thinking about commuting at those hours, like if you have class until 9 p.m., like how will you get home after? Like those are important practical questions that I think I was prompted to think about before starting the program as well. And I love living in Chicago. I don't think that like there's a really long commute though between like Evanston and Chicago. It's about like 30 minutes on a good day. And I live right off of the highway, which is another thing I recommend if you are going to be commuting by car. But yeah.
Thank you, everyone. All right, so check the chat. No, okay, no new questions yet. All right, I don't know exactly what all the participants are interested in studying today. So apologies if, you know, some of this is information that might not be useful to them, but I was interested if each of you could go through and say what your favorite class has been and why. And you've already talked a little bit about how different classes have meant different things to you, but it could be interesting to hear the why part.
So this is a
Right.
tie for me. Oh, okay. It's a tie for me because I took child and adolescent development with Dr. Lauren Tai this past summer. And then I also took social science methods or secondary social science methods with Corey Winchester. And like both of these classes were just, I mean, I think they're the best classes that I've taken ever, just in terms of like what I learned, the type of things that we did in class, and like also the sense of like community in the classroom. And it helps that both of those professors are former teachers. And so they also like gave a lot of practical knowledge and like in both classes, which was like, I don't know if they planned their curriculum together or something, but like they connected us with teachers working in the field right now and like gave us opportunities to ask questions. And although they were both very different, like child and adolescent development is giving you like a foundation in theories of like learning, and social science methods is like, I mean, it offers, you know, what it says, but like both classes just offered a really like rigorous experience and like a very practical knowledge that I feel like both classes I continue to like carry lessons from those through, you know, through beyond. So yeah, those are like my two favorites.
Yeah, for me, it's very hard to choose which class I really like the most. I think like the experience I liked the most was beginning the program in the summer, where all three classes had almost like the exact same people in each class. The summer start was like the early start, and that experience for me made it felt like it was like this one big class with like three little topics that we were having over the quarter. These classes were foundations of learning new language, social context, educating exceptional children, and I think like the way that each class, because we had the same members and like the same experience, like we were able to connect the dots here and there between these different classes and make connections. It felt really interesting and great for me. That I think that was the best learning experience I had so far as a student. And I'm really glad that that was the start of my experience here in the program as well.
Okay, I will go next. I also feel very hard to really figure out my favorite class. Like Marisa, I was also in Dr. Lauren Tai's children and adolescent development class last summer, and I really enjoyed that. That was my first class in educational psychology, and Dr. Tai gave us a very good basis of educational psychology in a very limited time. I think it's only 6 weeks, or I think it's even less than 10 weeks. So I really appreciate that class. And another one I think I will say is it was also an MSED class. It was an intensive summer class conducted by Dana. I think we are first students of that class. It's cultural sustainable design. So that class was finished in 2 weeks, and during each week we went to a class on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and each class lasts for 5 hours. It was very intensive, but I really appreciate that Dana gave a very good design curriculum, and we not only stay in a classroom, we also visit many other sites. Like for me, I choose Chicago History Museum, and right now my research topic is still related to my experience from that class. So I really appreciate that attend, although it's a very new class. And I also see that Anna is interested in learning sciences, and I want to share a little bit more about learning sciences class. So I think I appreciate every learning sciences class because basically they position every students in learning sciences class as students with their clear research interests. So as James mentioned about, um, we we get a lot of support to really develop and dive deeper into our own research interest and the related disciplines. So I think it's one character of learning sciences class. If anyone wants to know more about it, and I am happy to talk more. And I think Ellie got something to say.
I think my favorite class was also similar to Marissa's, where I was in a class that gave me so many materials I can use as a future teacher. It was the elementary literacy content and methods by Terry Bridgman. It was amazing. We all loved it so much. We created an elementary literacy book club where we get to go to Terry's house and talk about books we can use in an elementary education classroom, and how we would teach them, and the different like materials we would use. And yeah, it was amazing. She came in every day with actual like ways to teach each thing, instead of just like, this is what you have to teach. This is how you teach kids how to read, which it's a very heavy topic in that class because you have to go over like phonetics, morphology, like all of it. But she makes it so applicable for you, and it also connects you with teachers, so you can go in and watch how they're doing it, but also practice with those students in the classroom. It's definitely the class I've had so far that has connected practice, theory, and like fun in the classroom. It was awesome.
hard to understate the importance of fun. From our participants, I just want to see if there are any more questions that you wanted to ask. You can unmute if you'd like to ask them. If you're in a setting where you can go ahead and ask with your voice, or if you have anything you want to put in the chat. I have one more question I want to ask all of our panelists, but I want to make sure that if you have more questions, that we have the time to do that. I'll give it a moment. Everyone can take a breath for a moment. Then the final question I'm going to have our panelists ask or answer is why they chose MSed over other programs. You might have a really long answer for this. You might have a succinct answer for this, but if you could just explain why you made this choice for your graduate school education, that would be perhaps a very helpful insight.
I think I have a very, very long answer, but I'm doing my best to like make it as short as possible in the time that we have. So the very short answer to this, for me at least, is definitely going to be the community. I love the community here. Apart from our teachers, the staff in the MS Ed house, my peers, also everyone else in the classroom, I think that the way that we interact with each other has really been very meaningful for me. Back in my undergrad, I was in a very small liberal arts college, and I really like that experience, you know, being able to sort of like walk along in the hallway towards a different class and then seeing friends every now and then, being able to pop into my professor's rooms every time that they might have their office hours available to ask questions about readings, assignments. I think that I sort of like wanted that experience as well in my graduate studies. And I think that being here in the MSed program has provided that even more for me. Apart from all of those experiences, the close and compact community, I also think that another factor of community, like I sort of talked about, was how the community here in the MSed program isn't just here in the MSed, it also is in Northwestern. It's also in Evanston and even reaching out to Chicago. I think that having such an amazing community really makes you feel like, you know, you're part of the educator system and you're part of the system that's sort of like trying to make change. I think that that's really important, really motivating for me.
Okay, I'll go next. I really resonate with James about the atmosphere I have among the community here. But I think it's a rationale I developed after I arrived here. So before I physically arrived in Evanston, I would say because I was a student from another major, and I just started my academic journey in educational research, and I found that after I doing research on several programs, I found that first, learning sciences is a very inclusive discipline. It's a very young, but it has people from multiple disciplines gathering together to talk about what is learning and how can we facilitate learning. So I think that's why I decided to choose learning sciences as my next step in the academic journey. And the second reason is that Northwestern is an initiator in learning sciences discipline. And I also, after I exploring the website and the faculty members of learning sciences, I really found many faculty members that can help me to develop my research interest and help me go deeper into the very specific discipline. So regarding the above two reasons, I decided to come here.
So for me, I was deciding between, I think I got into 5 different programs and I was deciding between all of them. And then the biggest thing for me, like when it came down to it, was location. I cannot emphasize how much I love Evanston and Chicago. I think it's amazing, but I'm also like Midwest born and bred, so I knew I wanted to be here. The next thing was that getting into Northwestern, compared to every other program I got into, they made me feel like they were excited for me to come here. I felt like they told me that I had experiences that would add to the program, which was very exciting to hear. This program made me feel a lot more valued than any of the others, that I wasn't just some student coming in that didn't have a voice or didn't have things to add. It made me feel like I was coming in and I would have experiences to share with people, and I would get to learn from others as well.
So for me, I kind of talked about this in the intro, but the guiding commitments of the program were really important to me. And before, like, two really important books that drew me to want to become a teacher were like Bell Hooks' Teaching to Transgress and Bettina Love's like We Want to Do More Than Survive. And so prior to even like finding out about the MSED program, I had read these two books, and I carried them like with me very deeply. And when I was looking for programs, I saw not only like the guiding commitments of our program had been, I think, changed as of like 2021, and you'd be hard pressed to find any program that doesn't talk about advancing equity, anti-racism, and taking seriously like teacher-student positionalities. But I think it's really something really special about the MSED program is that like the program itself has modeled like changing to meet the needs of students and changing to meet the needs of like equity, and actually taking those words and putting them into practice, which is really important to me. And not only did I see these books like reflected in my classrooms, and like, of course, reading them a second time or third time, like as a learner with everyone in the MSED program was really important. But I feel like there is a genuine commitment to transformative teaching and learning, which they talk about in the guiding commitments. And that's something that like really just resonates with me and really made me want to be a student here, because I think the values of a program say a lot about like what you're going to learn and who is helping you throughout your journey and career. And that was something that I took really seriously. And I see that those guiding commitments are modeled not only in like our classrooms, which everyone has like highlighted, but especially in the student to student and student to teacher interactions. So that was like a big driver for me. And it's something that set MSED apart from other programs that I looked at. And it's something that like, I still think makes this program really special and one that I love to call home.
Thank you. Oh, Sierra just added. If you want to go ahead and say that, you can, Sierra.
Do we still have time?
Yeah,
I will go very briefly. Yeah. So upon listening to others' response, I found another point that MSED in learning sciences is a very good conjecture. It's a conjecture point between the teachers and researchers. So I don't know about my peers, but for me, I think I have been really suffering about the deficiency in my teaching experiences. And I think MSED in learning sciences really support me in this part. It connects me to my pre-service teachers and also my and other students already doing their research. So I think it's a very good combination between research and school settings.
Thanks so much for adding that on, Sierra. I wanted to point out that I dropped a link in the chat to the guiding commitments that Marissa was mentioning, just in case you haven't come across them this week or in your research about our program. But there is a page on our website that explains what our guiding commitments are and what that means to us in our vision. So take the time to look that over or save that for later if you aren't already familiar, since it's inspired at least one of our panelists to become an MSED student. It's hard for me to express how grateful I am to Marissa, James, Sierra, and Allie for taking time out of their day today and for the reflection that they probably had to do in advance for today to be ready to answer questions and prompts from me and from our participants. So thank you so much. I am really grateful. And unless there's any further questions from any of the participants, I am going to go back to sharing my screen. So if any participants, if anyone does anything in the chat, interrupt me because I might not notice as I'm screen sharing. Just a moment, let me get that going. Sorry, not a Zoom wizard here. Share my screen. Slideshow. Okay. So thank you very much to our students. There's their names again. And then I'm going to hand it over to Kavitha to kind of summarize our preview days experience that we've had here. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I have to tell you, first I want to also emphasize our sincere gratitude to all of you, Sierra and James and Allie and Marissa. I can't think of a better way to end the week. I think the things that you shared probably have more resonance and connecting power than anything that we've done this week combined. So thank you for your time and your contributions. And to Anissa and Amber, thank you so much for being here. We hope that you were feeling the love from our panelists and getting some insights, which is really what today and this entire week have been designed to do, to give you something that helps you move beyond the web page and move beyond kind of the words on a page, and to get a little bit of a flavor about what we as a program and as a community of educators care about and value in our work, not just in terms of our interactions with one another, but who we are all trying to become and continue to become and evolve as educators. So we hope that you got a sense of our community, and you heard James talk about that a lot. I think that for those of you that were here on opening day last Saturday, I said to you that there's so many wonderful things about this program that I can speak to, that you've heard our panelists and our students speak to, but for me, it's the people. It's our team and our students. And I don't think I have to really explain that much further, because you can see the rich experiences and perspectives that they bring, and how those perspectives really add and serve as the hub, the core of our community. So, throughout the week, we had a number of goals, getting connected to people, getting some opportunities to get inside classrooms for a little bit, getting some information about the programs in terms of logistics, and learning a little bit more about our vision for teaching and learning and education more broadly. So we really hope that you were able to take something meaningful away from today and the rest of your week. You've heard a number of us say that we're here to answer any questions for you, whether it be with a specific student, from an advisor, if you have made that connection. For those of you going through the process now, you're connected already. And thank you again for being here. What's going to happen as a next step? Oh, thank you for putting that question, contact information if you should have any needs, whether it be about preview days or not. All of the recordings from this week will be, well, many of the recordings from this week will be available on the CVent site. And we will also follow up with a short survey just to continue to get input and make sure that the experiences that we're providing for our prospective students are meeting your needs. So thank you again, and we wish you a lovely, lovely afternoon.